Hey, welcome back, and thanks again for listening to the History of the Papacy in 10 minutes or less, a YouTube exclusive video series where we talk about some of the less known aspects of the history of the papacy, the church, Christianity, and we try and do them in a short a time as possible. So we really pack in a lot of information. Now, this is a short little bit of a conversation that I had with Terry Young of the History of the Early Church podcast on early Christian martyrs. And in this episode of the History of the Papacy in 10 minutes, we'll talk about a few accounts of the martyrs and if their stories line up or not. So if you want to hear more, I've put links to the audio version which is on my podcast feed, and a video version of it on YouTube. I put those in the show notes below. And so enjoy that conversation. There's a ton, and I think you'll get a little taste of it that you'll definitely want to go and hear more. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I want to thank all of our patrons on patreon.com/history of the papacy. Join us there to support the show. It makes a ton of difference. Make sure you click the like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all that stuff. Whatever else you can do to get more videos like this and help this whole project going. And I really appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you next time.
I'll start off with two kind of legendary ones and then get to some more historical ones. So this is an easy one. There is a Christian martyr named Saint Alexandra the Empress, or Saint Alexandra of Rome. And she is supposedly the wife of Diocletian, and she was martyred under her husband for her Christian faith. Problem is, we know the name of Diocletian's wife. It was not Alexandra, it was Prisca, and she was executed by Licinius in a dynastic purge that had nothing to do with her supposed Christianity. Now, there is an earlier version of her story which has her as the wife of a governor, which I suspect, if there's any history to the story at all, that's probably what it was, and she was later upgraded to being the wife of the emperor. One of, I think, the best examples is a martyr named Saint Procopius of Scythopolis. Procopius was a reader and exorcist in the Church of Palestine. He was also a Syriac interpreter, so he was bilingual. He would, because you have Christians speaking Syriac and Greek in that region. And he was known personally to Eusebius of Caesarea, and Eusebius commemorates a martyrdom account about him in his work. But if you Google a picture of Procopius of Scythopolis, he's dressed as a soldier. And you might scratch your head and go, why is Procopius dressed as a soldier? And it's because in later medieval legend, he evolved into one of the great military saints, up there with George and Demetrius and others. So the historical person that Eusebius knew has been replaced by this legendary soldier who bears almost no resemblance to the historical figure. And if we didn't have Eusebius's account, we might never know that. That just shows you the degree to which later legend can take over from the historical person. And it's good that we have Eusebius, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get past that, probably.
So those are two good examples of like real Hollywood hagiographies.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So now I want to get to two positive examples. So the first one, this is a well-known martyrdom account, the Passion of Saints Perpetua and Felicity. And they were two women who were martyred in Carthage in 203 under the Emperor Septimius Severus. Wasn't ordered by him, but it was just during his reign. Their martyrdom account is interesting because it's actually part of it's actually a journal that Perpetua herself wrote when she was in prison. I say journal. Well, yeah, journal probably the best way. And then another martyr, a male martyr who was also killed in this, he wrote as well. And a local Carthaginian Christian who seems to have known them took their accounts and edited it together into his eyewitness narrative. Now, one of the things this text does is it has the unintentional precision accuracy that an authentic source will get right, but a later source could not have gotten right. So if you, some of you might if you know your Roman history, the emperor I mentioned, Septimius Severus, when he died, his two boys took over the empire, Caracalla and Geta, and they hated each other. They were at each other's throats. And eventually Caracalla killed his younger brother Geta and damned his memory, and did a really good job of it, actually. Such a good job of it that Geta's birthday is not attested to in any other source. we kind of learn that it was sometime in the spring, but his actual day of birth is not mentioned anywhere except the Passion of Perpetua and Felicity. Because as part of the setting, it mentions that on March 7th that year in 203, they were being exposed to the beast in the arena in honor of the Caesar, because Geta wasn't emperor yet, he was still just Caesar in 203, in honor of his birthday. It has nothing to do with the main purpose of that text. It's just mentioned because that's part of the setting, but it preserves a fact about a Roman emperor that we would have lost otherwise because of Caracalla's damning of his brother's memory. And it's something a later writer could not have known and would not have had access to.
No, there's not, and there's no reason.
Right, and there's no reason. And again, the text doesn't mention that to mention it. It just brings it up because it explains why they're being killed in the arena today. That's so that's that unintentional precision accuracy. And then the last one that I want to mention, this is actually a letter by the Bishop of Alexandria, Dionysius, who survived both the Decian and Valerian persecutions, and he was accused of cowardice by a fellow bishop, and he circulated a letter after the persecutions to try to clear his name and prove that he was not a coward. And he included in one of his letters his actual court transcript before the acting prefect of Egypt. Because one thing that sometimes gets brought up is, how were Christians able to get a hold of trial transcript records? Like, why would Roman authorities have given those to them? We do know from papyri evidence from Egypt that private citizens could get court transcripts, like family members and what have you. They could get copies of those. Now, whether Christians did that through the normal means or maybe bribed the official or what have you, we're not sure. But either way, they could get copies of those. And as a way of just kind of confirming this, so Dionysius included what he claimed was the copy of his trial transcript in his letter. And what's interesting, in his letter, he sort of summarizes the proceedings, and he gives a very nice summary of that really makes him sound very brave and what have you, and very direct with the Roman governor. When you actually read the transcript he includes, though, it's a bit more muted. He doesn't come off as a coward, but he doesn't, in the actual court record, he doesn't quite sound so forceful and so direct as he does in his summary. Now, that may seem, okay, that's a minor difference. He's exaggerating a bit to try to make himself better. True. But the fact that he's able to do that demonstrates that trial transcript in his letter is not something he doctored up, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to slightly misrepresent it.
There's so many different ways you can dig into these documents, and that the fact that he had a documentary proof is pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's a good way of it's another piece of the puzzle that sheds light on this. So those are some. I know we had to I had to run through those quick, but I hope listeners have found that interesting. Those are some of the ways that scholars evaluate martyrdom accounts and try to separate the wheat from the chaff and figure out what's reliable and what's not, and what can we use.
I kind of think that we have we have the possibility of another collaboration here, of a little game show of pick out the problems with this martyrdom account.
We could, yeah. It'd be funny.